Hello, my Sparkle Sisters. Happy Winning Wednesday. Oh my goodness, so excited for this week. And oh my gosh, I have just been praying and praying and talking to a lot of y'all what we kind of want to work on. And what I'm going to do is a series. I'm more of a series kind of girl. And we're going to talk about taking the wheel, like taking the wheel back on our life. So I hope you're excited about that. I was a little late getting our fun question out, so y'all will still be able to be able to check on that. I want to tell you some of the fun ones on here. I talked about when you walk into a room, like what do you like go into the room and go, ta-da? Or is it I always do the one where it's dun 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 dun, like a movie thing. My favorite my song whenever I come out on stage in my Mary Kay world is Van Halen's Right Here, Right Now. And that's a fun one. We're the only people to ever debut on stage with pink guitars. So, like what is that song that you just love to be able to hear? And it was so fun. My daughter put raindrops and gumballs or and then Bridget Tubbs says, "This girl is on fire." Oh my gosh, that is so true. And so if y'all keep those coming, I just love it. It helps me to know a little bit more about you. And thank you all that loved the flashback to flash forward on Fridays. Y'all know on that, what we're doing is every Friday, just posting one of the things that we've done in the past. So then that way I'm not really repeating myself. And so I want to start out with a story, and this one just cracks me up. So I found like an old treasure trove. How many of y'all have treasure troves of fun stories? So two, so funny. Okay, so remember our thing, you can type this in, is take the wheel. Two elderly women were out driving in a large car. They could both barely see over the steering wheel. As they were cruising along, they came to the intersection. The spotlight was red, but they just went on through. The woman in the passenger seat thought to herself, I must be losing it. I could have sworn we just went through a red light. Next red light, boom, goes through that. Thinks to herself, oh my goodness, I think we just went through another red light, and she was starting to get a little nervous. The next intersection, no joke, just blast right on through there. Light was red. She turned to her friend and she said, Mildred, we've just run through three red lights in a row, and you could have killed us both. And Mildred looked at her and said, crap, I'm driving. Sometimes, y'all, if that is not us in our life, like, all of a sudden all these things are going on and you're like, crap, I'm supposed to be driving this thing. Well, I wanted to, I don't know why that tickles me. I probably told that story 1,000 times, and I'm probably the only person that thinks that's funny. But how many of y'all know what I'm talking about? Like, you wake up one day and you're like, oh my gosh, this is not the life that I dreamed of whenever I was a little girl and I was, growing up, and I imagined my life that I could bring home the bacon, which is something we used to talk about, and fry it up, not even look like I've had bacon, and like I would, just have all of these things. And then I wake up one day and you don't even recognize yourself, and you don't even recognize the life you're living, and you definitely don't recognize the future that you are barreling into. And so as we start this series, I want to talk to y'all. I'm going to start out today a little bit about talking about energy. And we have talked about that a lot, but because I believe that energy, I know in our world right now, we're kind of entering our final four. And I know we've got a lot of y'all that are at nonprofits, with a lot of people that are in ministry that plug in, a lot of networking. My Dixon Women of Excellence, I know several of y'all are plugging in as well. That sometimes you have a tendency to not realize the power of your vibration. Now, what I mean by that is that when you think about the most powerful people that you know, in other words, when you leave their space, like, you're vibrating differently. And then there's other people that you vibrate like really like, oh, I need a drink. How many of y'all know what I'm talking about? Now, don't type in their names, but y'all know what I'm talking about. It's just, like, you leave people kind of how they were vibrating. And those of us who are leaders, right? Women of excellence, we're going to make the decision to take the wheel back and control our energy. And part of the way that we do that is by, I know that there's Enneagrams and there's DISC and there's the four tendencies and there's the Myers-Briggs and eventually we're going to hit all of those because I don't think you can hear that enough. And I know every time that I teach it, I uncover another layer about how I can be a better leader for my people, a better coach for myself, a better wife, better mom. And so, but this series, we're going to focus in on success needs because whenever I look around in all of the arenas that I have the privilege of serving in and being a part of, there is such a significant difference in the people who love their life and the people who don't. And it really has nothing to do with status, depending on kind of how you're wired. It's not always very obvious why they should feel that way. And that's really what happened to me is that there were times in my business, I just really loved it and it was peaceful. And I'm obviously in one of those seasons right now where I am just like on fire. Like I can barely sleep. Like I'm up at 4 a.m. I don't wake up to an alarm clock. I just wake up whenever the Lord wakes me up. And like my prayer time is great. And like I'm just in a season, but for me personally, it is because whenever I'm pouring in to different groups of people, that's what brings me energy because I'm what's called love and belonging. Okay. So we're going to talk about the 4 success needs. And these needs are not personality. And these needs are as essential as air. They are as essential as water. And if they are not being met, you are going to operate at a lower energy. So I wanted to kind of start through now for y'all that want to drill down with an expert in this. That is Stacey James, one of my best friends. And if you scroll back in Sparkle, she did a phenomenal, like an hour training. So I'm not going to even pretend like I could do that like she does. But what I do want to do is just give you the kind of the Cliff Notes version of that. So let me pull this up here so that you can kind of see what I'm talking about. I was just having lunch yesterday with Amanda, and we were talking about the power of this, but it's the irresistible energy kind of a chart is really what we're looking at. And then there was a TEDx that was done that, somebody really, they did measure the frequency that people put off. And so somebody that shame, by the way, is the lowest, right? There's shame and guilt and apathy, grief, fear, desire, anger, pride, courage, neutrality, willingness, acceptance, reason. So then you start kind of going a little bit higher. But we do live in a world where shame is really celebrated. And there's a lot of things that we all as human beings have made decisions in our life that we wish we could go back and change. And we did talk a little bit about this before, but to also understand that if you were the same person with the same experience, the same modeling, the same hormone level, the same choices, the same amount of information, you're going to make that same decision again. So instead of being defined by that decision, what we want to do is we want to acknowledge it and then we want to move up. So let's run through this really quick. And I'll just let you kind of, again, just do some self-coaching on there. And for y'all that don't mind, if you want to just kind of put on here, Taylor McKnight always is the best. She just makes sure that I'm on message here. But starting at the bottom. So again, the bottom, like whenever you're operating in shame, in other words, maybe if you're leading like in our world, or you're leading a business, or you're leading a home, or you're leading in students, and you're operating in shame. In other words, you're so embarrassed about something you did, and then you've kind of been thought about it so much as that's kind of who you're defined with. It's your filter that we talked about. Emotional pain is in control. And then there's guilt, right? In other words, I was not a woman of my word with the promises that I made to myself. In other words, I promised myself that I was going to be healthy, or I was going to do something for my spouse or spouse, or I was going to be the kind of mom that I wanted to be, or in business, I promised myself that I would do these kinds of numbers, or that I would do this kind of activity, or whatever it is that looks like, and yet you didn't keep the promise to yourself. And that's going to be your heaviest guilt. Yes, we do feel that when we let other people down, but that's more shame, right? But guilt is when we look in the mirror at the end of the day, did we do what we promised ourselves? And that's where we really want to keep the promises that we make to ourselves. And then from there, you get into apathy. And I see a lot of people operating in this right now. And that is just no desire to understand. You're just emotionally detaching. I see that in what I do. People are in and they're running, they're great. They hit a couple of things, life comes in, and then all of a sudden they just totally detach. They don't plug in, they don't, they're not trying to find an answer. They go and they chase other things. They go and do all of that. That's just a normal response when you have hit a wall, just apathy. And again, who's driving the wheel? You're the one that's driving the wheel. You're going to stay at these for as long as you choose to. Nobody else is making you be there. You're driving the wheel, right? You're the one that's running the red lights. Crap, I'm driving, right? So today is about crap, I'm driving. So that's where we've got there. So if you find yourself pulling away, I always know I'm working with a champion is whenever they have just taken 100 hits and they are still showing up and they're still teaching and they're still out there working. And Crystal Gardner is someone I tell this story about her all the time. She and I work together, and there's times, whenever you do something for a lifetime that you really are like, why am I doing this? I have these huge goals. I have these things, and it's not showing up there. There's other places where I'm being blessed, but right here it is not. Do you know what I love about her? Is she absolutely will not stop working. She will not. She's just like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the last thing that I remember that I was good at and that brings me joy, and I'm going to do that thing that grows my business. I'm not going to go over here and do all these other things. I'm going to go right here, and I'm going to find something in health or wealth that I'm going to kind of work on that I can track, that I can win in. And so it's been so good. And then you just watch her, and then all of a sudden it just like explodes. But she refuses to operate in shame or guilt or apathy. How many of you all would love to be known for a person like that? Those are the kinds of people that we want to hang out with for sure. And then of course there's fear. And we live in a world of fear. You have to be careful what you're watching at night. Many of y'all have heard this story. At night, it's so important of what you watch. And I remember when The Walking Dead was out and Tom was watching that, and I'm like, Tom, how am I going to have a miracle-filled Monday if the last thing I heard was all these zombies trying to kill people? And I love to read. I'm an avid reader, and I used to love to read murder mysteries. I just love them because I love to figure out who done it. But the problem is that it made me afraid to go out at night. Now, I don't do that much now because I work virtually. But at the time, I'm telling you what, I was getting in that car, I was going out, and then I could hear the narrator going, and she got out of her car and the murderer was, do you know what I'm saying? So like if you're watching the news and those kinds of things, you got to be really careful what podcast that you're watching, where are you growing? Tom and I just made a commitment that whatever we go to bed on is either Colin Cowher on the Herd. So we love him, right? We're going to either listen to sports or we're going to listen to a podcast that we're going to learn something. And so that our brain gets going on that. I would prefer to listen to more Christian music and more of that, but that's not Tom's cup of tea. So we compromised in the middle there. So that's something. So what is it that you need to listen to whenever you're going to bed? And then you also get into frustration, anger, discouragement, bitterness. I see this again when people are not keeping the promises that they made to themselves. They're not learning. They're not putting all their energy into learning how to master their trade. We talked about this last week. It's 10,000 hours to master your trade. Most people get to about 5,000, and then they add in something else, and then they add in something else, and then they add in something else, and they're like, wow, I'm just like the queen of mediocrity. I'm not good at anything, right? Because you never figured out the one thing and mastered all of the bricks that it takes to be good. Why am I good at what I do? Because I'm well over 10,000 hours. And that instead of taking on other things, then I just went after this. And so again, as a leader, I understand that people default different ways, but I'm going to challenge you all in whatever it is that you're called to do. Have you mastered every step? Is there a place where you're uncoachable? Is there a thing that, and again, we're so smart. We know what we should and shouldn't be doing. We know that if we've got a gap, in other words, we go along and we go poof, every single time we're going along and just like the bottom falls out. Well, you have a gap, right? To get from A to Z, if you don't master F, you're dropping every single time. I use F because, of the F word, but like you're just dropping off. Well, there are skills that go along with that maybe you've been unwilling to master. So again, kind of thinking through that. So then the frustration is, you know what you need to be doing and you're not doing it, which comes back to the guilt of being able to look in the mirror and be able to not respect the woman in the mirror. And then you feel shame because you told your family that, all right, I'm gonna be the primary support, and then you're not doing it. Can y'all see that spiral? And then you start to vibrate this. Here's the challenge for those of us that are growing teams and looking for clients. When you're operating and you're vibrating like this, that's who you're attracting. Everyone who is operating in guilt and shame and fear, that's who you just are, this magnet, and you're drawing all that. So then you're drawing more drama to you. So even though you might be working really hard, you're not going anywhere because you're not attracting leaders. So again, who's taking the wheel, right? This is you running through red lights. All right, let's talk about working with green lights. Okay, so green lights. Pride is another one. Comparison, which is of course the world that we look in. That's why, I don't look at how many likes or anything like that. I'm not doing it for that. That's why, it is really important that you put out whatever content you feel like people need to hear. So whether it's 1 or 1 million, I'm not responsible for that. And so I think we got to be really, really careful with that. But once you are ready to vibrate higher, to attract more people, to have more joy, to have more holy anticipation, it starts with gratitude. I talked about this last week. I talked about the things that I did every day, that I operate in gratitude first, because when gratitude gets started, what happens is it opens up your heart to desire and ambition again. And sometimes, y'all, we've got to be able to go on a recon mission. This is my military coming up. We got to go on a recon mission and maybe start calling our people and find out how what we're offering, again, whether it's student ministry or church or a nonprofit or your business or your kids, or you're taking care of aging parents, or whatever your career is. Go to some of your clients and just say, I'm just curious, how was our interaction? How was that a blessing to you? What was it that I did that made you, feel special? You've been loyal to me for all this time. Why is that? Or why are you loyal to the company or the church? And find out what you're doing right so that you can do more of that. As your confidence grows, you can also ask, what could I do differently? But I would caution you, if you're operating down here, you don't need any more trash in your head. Like, you probably already know it. You don't need somebody else. So like whenever I'm coaching people, they're like, I know I needed to do this and this and this. I'm like, okay, fine. I wasn't going to ask them because they're already operating in so much guilt and shame. They don't need that from me. What do they need from me? Belief. They need belief. They need unconditional love and belief. And if you're a leader and a coach out there, quit being a taskmaster and be a dream weaver. Again, we can't control how they receive it, but our job is to find everything that they're doing right. Now, when there's an obvious gap and they're not seeing it, then you could say, all right, let's drill down here. What do you feel like you should do? What have you heard? Tell me why you've been unwilling to do that. Let's go deeper. Let's find the root on those kinds of things like that. But that it's sandwiched, like Mary Kay taught us, in so much belief and love. And again, sandwich all criticism, all coaching in between thick layers of genuine praise, not flattery, genuine praise of where you've seen them. Okay. So let me jump back over here. So we've got this here. So we've got then generosity. I do events in my business. And I do things like this. Again, I'm not looking for affirmation. I may do this and nobody may see it. I may do an event for hundreds of people and not get one thank you card. I'm okay with that because I'm not doing it to stroke my ego. I'm not doing it for them to make me feel good. I'm doing it because that's how I want to serve people. Forgiveness and acceptance. Who do you have to forgive? Number one person is you. And accept that others. I just had the privilege of doing a podcast for our company with Mary Kay. It was and I don't normally like to listen to myself, but I did go back because I couldn't remember what I talked about. And one of the things that I talked about, I just wanted to remind y'all of that, is that people can only let you down if you're leaning on them. Okay. And what I talked about during this is that people are doing the best that they can. And that sometimes with them going sideways, back and forward, it is a good thing because they need to maybe move out of the way so that that their people need a bigger vision. Maybe they need to slow down for a minute. Again, their choices don't control your future because you hold the wheel unless you give the wheel to them, right? Who's driving your future? Who's driving that? You get to decide on that. So again, just realize, bless her heart, she is truly doing the best that she can, not in sarcasm, not in meanness, not in the Southern, y'all know I always use my glitter here, bless her little heart, but truly, bless her heart, she's doing the best that she can. So we've got to forgive people that we're mad at because they weren't ready to run at the same time. I know a lot of y'all are in real estate and titles and all that, title companies, and they come to the closing and they're not ready. Okay, fine. There's a blessing in there for God's blessing to be there. Everybody is going to be blessed at the same time. But if you have a lot of things in the works, it's no big deal. The only time that people let you down is when you're leaning on them. You can't lead them if you need them. And I'm probably going to say that every week. So for those of us who are women of excellence, we need to know that we've got a lot of people. There's joy, right? That's celebration, not happy, joy. Then there's the peace that just knows that God is in control. It's unmovable. You can't move from that. And then, of course, there is passion, irresistibility, enlightenment. And this is where, my goal is to operate so that I attract people to me, regardless of what is going on. And so I'm not there all the time. Don't get me wrong. I'm not. Every once in a while, I'll peek out at that. And then I'll make some other bonehead decision. And then I got to go back through it again. But what I want y'all to do is take a look around. We always talk about the inner circle. Who's the inner circle that you're around? And if they're tired, crabby, and broke, I would bet you're operating down here. This is what you're vibrating. If you're operating in generosity and gratitude, then that group of people is going to be a higher quality being that they're emotionally stable, they're loyal, they're kind of your core values that go along with that. And then whenever you don't even have to think about it, you just attract people to you and you watch them walk away from you with their shoulders held back and that they feel better about themselves because the conversation wasn't about you, it was about them. It wasn't about what's wrong with them, it was about what was right with them. It was about what you're doing in the future and not being chained to the past. So there's so many people whose dreams are attached to yours, and how you operate, whether you're operating down here or here or here, you drive the wheel. So I hope you're excited for next week. We're going to be coming back together and we're going to start on success needs. And what I am going to do is put up a little test up there, and so that you can kind of just go through that. And then next week we'll be working through that. But I'm excited to hear what you learned about energy. Share this with a friend. We will be putting it up on the YouTube channel. Feel free to share that with friends. Who is taking the wheel right there? We probably need to run some red lights. We need to run some yellow lights, y'all, because we need to run right now. Don't wait for all the lights to turn green. Grab the handle and let's go be a blessing, because together we're too blessed to be stressed, too anointed to be disappointed, too equipped to be whipped. Have a miracle-filled week. Y'all, see you next week.